I've got a comment.
Okay.
It has to do with the PIP. In a revised PIP, you mentioned that you have various approaches that you've used to do outreach for the community and protect it. Open houses, you specify the use of project offices, public education events, local advertisements, newsletters, and what have you. I was wondering about another kind of outreach that you have. I will call it a shadow outreach, and it wasn't particularly mentioned in the PIP, but it has to do with lawsuits. And specifically what I'm talking about is BP's involvement in a lawsuit in the town of Lyme back in 2008. Now that lawsuit, I don't know if you recall, it had to do with concerned landowners, concern about strict requirements of the new law that Lyme had adopted and had to do with the wind generating facilities, what have you. So it was an issue that would obviously have been very important to BP. In Exhibit 2 of your PIP, the revised PIP that you had, you said, and I quote, it says, in 2007, BP retained the services of Trieste Associates and the company's team of public outreach experts to assist the planning events to educate and engage the public as part of this effort. BP assisted a local group of wind supporters in the towns of Cape Vincent and Lyme to form a group known as Voters for Wind. So you're indicating right there in your PIP that you had a connection to the Voters for Wind organization. And there's another connection here too with respect to that particular lawsuit. And this comes from an organization of Trieste Associates. And it states right here, this is, for example, Trieste Associates has helped citizens organize groups such as Voters for Wind in New York that educates the public about the benefits of renewable energy resources. And Voters for Wind filed and won a lawsuit against the elected officials who voted to prohibit a wind farm in the town of Lyme. Now that was, that quote came from my CERTA-sponsored school curriculum done by the Windwise education group. So here it is, they're saying here right up in front, Trieste, by the way, is a consultant of yours, it is paid by BP, saying, hey, we have a case history here, this is what we do, here's a method for dealing with municipalities who adopt laws that they feel are too restrictive. So the question I have is, did BP, did you have any involvement, did you admit to any involvement in that lawsuit that went on in those days? And on another issue, one here more recently is another lawsuit that occurred here in the town of Cape Vincent. Just prior to your submission of this whole application process, which was September of this year, we had a lawsuit that went on with a number of bloggers in this town. Now, having already established that, I guess plaintiffs in the lawsuit that came out here with the bloggers, it says plaintiffs have been involved in a civic organization known as Voters for Wind. So here it is, we have another lawsuit, Voters for Wind, which is an organization that you say in your PIP that you have supported and what have you. They're filing a lawsuit against a couple of bloggers that we have in our community. The interesting thing was the timing of that. In other words, that lawsuit occurred just prior to the time you submitted your application here. So if it's a case of trying to reduce or minimize some of the critical comments or something that might go forward with this type of thing, it was probably a pretty good approach and what have you. There's another connection that concerned us, is that when you took a look at the law firm that was representing those plaintiffs, Voters for Wind, was a law firm that BP has used in the past, Waters. And they have an office right in Houston, right in the same building that you have an office right there. So the question is, has there been any involvement, any financial involvement supporting these lawsuits? I mean, they are Voters for Wind. They've identified that they are Voters for Wind. You have identified that you got the group together. I might also add, when you go back to we've got copies of your lease agreements. And right in the lease agreement it says, there's a clause there, it says, shall assist and cooperate with you folks, BP, in getting any kind of these projects forward in the permitting. And it also says that that you shall assist with out of no out-of-pocket expense, which tells me that, hey, anything they go forward with, whether they're these lawsuits, hey, if I were them, I'd say I would hope that you would be paying for this because you said right in the contract, they're contractually bound, that you're going to support them with respect to no out-of-pocket expense. So my question is, you know, have you been involved? Have you spent the money? Have you supported these groups? Have you promoted this kind of activity?
We are here to discuss the project. You introduced
This is the
this
PIP.
line of questioning.
This is the
Under
PIP.
the guise of public outreach, it has nothing to do with public
Yeah,
outreach.
well,
But
yes, it does.
If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But
Wait a minute,
really
it
think this
does.
pretty
It
far
is
off
the
topic.
PIP. You've made the connection to an organization that has filed lawsuits against this town, and has filed, town of Lyman has filed lawsuits here. We also know that they have agreements, contractual agreements with you, that they have to support you, and that you in turn are going to support them financially. And I think that when you go through this, and I look at this PIP, and you have all this nice little stuff where you've had brochures, you've had advertisements and everything else, and you fail to mention the fact that your connection to some of these activities, I don't think is fair. I don't think, and it might be legal, but as far as we are here in upstate New York versus maybe Houston, Texas, it doesn't pass our sniff test. You know, I just don't think it's ethical, and by the same token, I will throw into that package the whole idea of you're soliciting funds around here or making donations to groups that you would meet with this whole process. The timing is lousy, as I said before. Yeah, I've got one.
Well, can I go? Is there any constructive input into what we could be doing differently on our public outreach besides the workshops and the advertisements and the newsletters?
Yeah, don't get involved in lawsuits. Be open and honest.
Aside from the posturing that I thought we weren't going to have today, we're going to actually talk about maybe constructive
This was other.
involvement.
This was other. This was PIP. There is a connection.
I'd
Right,
ask you, John, this may be a case of first impression for you, to do what any lawyer would do, be respectful, I'll take it under advisement, and deal with it appropriately. It chills the atmosphere. Clearly, it chills the atmosphere in which we now sit with you and Richard, and it's difficult sometimes for many people here to look at what you're saying collectively with a high degree of credibility. So that said, take it under advisement, but know that there were 2 lawsuits. There's one pending right now involving individuals who are in the town of Cape Vincent, and that does chill the atmosphere in terms of engagement and involvement. And if there is involvement, if there is direct or indirect involvement, I would commend you to take a good look at that and determine how best to deal with it.
Maybe you and I can have an offline discussion.
I think that,
just give me the information.
I think that would be
cases that are
fine. Yeah.
concerning.
Okay, so we'll do that this week.